Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my Dune Awakening content. Well, you knew they were going to do it, folks. They had to eventually listen to their community. Funcom finally has made the announcement today that they're going to back off on their stance of forced PvP to acquire the top tier resources in the game. Now, what does this mean? Let's get into it. They didn't necessarily back off of it completely. There are still going to be PvP areas in the deep desert, which is the majority of the deep desert. But now, what they're going to do is they're going to create more areas where PvE players that want to play the game on the same level as the PvP players and get the top tier T6 resources can actually have somewhere to go to get those resources now without having to engage in a mechanic that they don't want to engage in. I think the developers of the game have seen overwhelming feedback from their Reddit AMAs, their Discord forums, everywhere where PvE players are saying, look, we get it that you want the deep desert to be PvP focused. We understand that. But you can't stop us from being able to get T6 resources like titanium, strontium, spice, just because we don't want to participate in that mechanic. That's not fair. It's never been fair. And their idea that a PvE player can still acquire those resources in that space is just not true. You can, yes, if you're lucky, a third of the time that you go out there, maybe. But if you get nailed in a mechanic that you don't want to participate in, then you have to spend the next day trying to recover from the losses that you sustained, doing something that you didn't want to have to do. So that's not fair to those players. And honestly, in my opinion, the PvE players are the ones keeping the lights on at Funcom. They're the majority of the player base, and you can't tell the majority of the player base, no, you cannot have these resources if you don't participate in this mechanic we've designed them around. That's not fair. It's never been fair, and the community has overwhelmingly spoke out against this. Now, I want to go ahead and look at this announcement, and I just want to apologize right off the bat. I cannot get this stupid buy on Steam thing to go away from the screen, but this is going to be a message from the creative director on PvE and PvP as of today from Joel Bylos. He says, hello, sleepers. I wanted to write something that acknowledges and addresses the comments around the endgame of Dune Awakening, while also providing some context for what we're attempting. So let me start by stating this unequivocally. We want PvE players to be able to play the endgame and have access to the content of the endgame. Our goal is not to force PvE players to interact with a PvP system that they may not have no interest in. And I'm just going to have to stop right there and I'm going to say, Joel, I get it. That may not be your goal, but that's what you're doing with the system that you have in place right now. That is exactly what you're doing. So while you say that, you need to get it that from our perspective as PvE players, that's exactly what you're doing to us. So we're very glad to see that you guys have finally decided to listen to us. And while it's not a total solution, this is at least a step in the right direction. He said no in-game plan survives first contact with the players. So they get it that they knew they were going to have to make this change. And if you've been watching my content, you've been listening to my opinions, you may disagree with me. That's totally fine. We can have differing opinions all day long. I'm never going to stop you from feeling how you want to feel. And if you're someone that is thoroughly engaged in PvP and you think this is a bad decision, then great. That's your opinion. But for me, and the majority of the player base, this was never a good design because it forced us to do something we didn't want to have to do. They say they still believe in the core concept of the deep desert, an endlessly renewing location that resets every week and creates an activity loop for great rewards. The tension of heading out there, head on a swivel, eyes peeled for foes as you enter the most dangerous part of the most dangerous planet in the universe. and I add because you're forced to progress. Our wish was that players would embrace this loop, forming guilds to work together to overcome the bleakness of the deep desert. And he says, wish in one hand and crap in the other. See which one fills up first. One of my hands is overflowing right now, and it's sadly not with wishes. Well, sorry, Joel, but you guys have been around the space long enough to know that this isn't fair, and trying to force it down the player's throat is never going to work. So get over it and do something about it. So that's what they're planning on doing. The reality is that the players are reporting being cut out of the in-game due to extremely competitive, well, it's not really competitive, it's unfair nature of the deep desert. Starting soon, some areas of the deep desert will now be flagged as partial warfare PvE, and where players will be able to explore testing stations and harvest T6 resources without the threat of conflict they may not want. It's important to note that the top tier of the game is balanced around guilds and groups, so people will still find it grindy if they play solo. Land thread, control points, shipwrecks, and the largest spice fields within this region of the deep desert will still remain PvP flagged. The deepest parts of the deep desert will remain as they currently are, high reward, high risk areas. That's great. That's totally fine with the majority of the PvE players. I would, venture to guess that most of them would say that's fine. But just give us our space where we can go and get the same materials and not have to engage in a mechanic we don't want to play. That's just not fair. We bought the game just like everybody else, and you're locking us out of that content by this design. It's never going to be fair. It never has been fair. PvP itself has plenty of issues that need to be addressed, and they're taking steps in that direction. The first changes they're going to make is Scout Ornithopters, which is a needed change. With rocket launchers attached, will have their speed maneuverability reduced. That should have been done from the onset. Rockets fired from scouts will have increased heat generation. That's a great change. Thrusters will provide a max speed bonus regardless of wings, ensuring that thruster-equipped scouts will be the fastest vehicles in the game, which it should be. If they're not carrying rockets, why can't they go faster? It's only common sense. If they're designed to escape, let them fill their role and escape. Don't make scouts with rockets just as fast. That totally negates that role of the escape thopter. Oh my God. It's not rocket science. A new T5 infantry rocker will be added to help improve the dynamics of vehicle ground combat. That's a great idea. Wonderful. There are additional changes to mechanics like respawn timers, vehicle storage tools, hand scanners, and other mechanics that they see being abused. So they're fixing those things. So it's really, really great to see that they're actually thinking about trying to fix this. Now they're going to talk about the land thread because they know that's broken too, because that's all the feedback is, the rage about the land thread being broken. As a system, it's an activity driver that is designed to promote the conflict between the factions, internal politics between the guilds, while providing goal thresholds for individuals and groups to work towards getting personal rewards. And the land thread should be doing that for everyone who wants to participate in the Elder game, be they PvE or PvPer. Land thread should be giving you things you want to do every week. It is not, though, sadly, because a lot of the crafting and hand-in quests are getting completed the minute the land thread goes live. People don't have a chance to participate. That's one of its main things that are causing it to be broken. So that looks like they're thinking about fixing that. They plan on adding more in-game and PvE content to the game going forward. We already knew that they were going to do that. So that's good to see them talk about that as well. But the major change in this announcement was the fact that they finally acknowledged that the PvE players that have been, screaming to the top of the hills are actually relevant in this game now, with the addition of an area where they can go to get top tier resources, which is an amazing change they finally did. It should have been in there at the start, because forcing players to do stuff they didn't want to do is never a good idea. But I'm just going to say, live and learn. Just like he said, no game mechanic survives first contact with the enemy without having to feel the pain points out and make changes. So they've done the right thing. Let's just, fingers crossed, hope that it pans out well and that people can be happy. The PvPers can still have a space that excites them and they can do the mechanics that they want. The PvEers that don't wish to engage in that will now have a space where they can hopefully get resources so that they can advance, because they've been tier locked basically at tier 5. And then let's hope that everybody can be happy and that they can then turn their focus towards fixing glitches and bugs in the game. That would be amazing. That would be awesome. And we thank you, Funcom, for finally listening. Thank you very much. So I appreciate you watching my content today. I wanted to bring you this news to let you know if you're a PvE player, there is hope. You will be able to finally get some resources and get out of your T5 level lock. So thank you for watching. I truly appreciate you. I'll see you in another video about Dune Awakening coming soon. And sorry, there is a lot of opinion in this video, but hey, I warned you ahead of time. It's how I feel, and I'm going to stick to my story here.